Good morning, afternoon everybody. How are you all doing today? I do hope you're well. I've had such a lovely little start to my day today. I thought I'd share 3 really lovely things because let's face it, you're all a bit low today. There we go. Let's face it, in this world these days, let's turn off the news and focus on lovely stuff. So, by the time you see this, it would have finished probably, but the Paralympics are on, and, well, as the world's #1 sport fan, of course, I'm addicted to the Paralympics. They're mostly in the UK, mostly the coverage starts at 11 at night and goes through till 11, 12 in the morning the next day. So I've slightly shifted my working day. I should have shifted it completely and just slept every day and stayed up all night, but I can't do the garden in the middle of the night. Anyway, I kind of shifted my days around so that I'm at home in the morning working. Afternoon, I can be out, whether it's the garden or whatever else. Get home by about sort of 5 or 6 o'clock, and then I can work at home through till midnight or sometimes a bit naughty, a bit beyond. So that I can have the Paralympics on, listen and enjoy. So this morning, one of the races was the T11 and Libby Clegg was running. Oh, I've warmed up now, I've walked down here. Strange weather. You look out the window and it looks really cold. I think it's probably cold for sitting still outside the shed, but my little walk has warmed me up. Anyway, so I thought I'll stop and watch. Now the T11 it was the 200 metres, women's 200 metres for visually impaired athletes. Because they have varying degrees of impairment, to make it a level playing field, they all wear a blackout blind. So yeah, they're running ostensibly blind. They run with a partner, a guide. And the guide, there's a little tether between their 2 arms, so they have to be synchronised. And it's phenomenal. And these women are ridiculously fast. I can't even imagine walking quickly with no vision. Anyway, because they're so fast, generally speaking, the vast majority of the female sprinters have a male guide. Because let's face it, if there's a woman sprinter out there fast enough to keep up with these female visually impaired sprinters, they're probably an elite athlete running for themselves. They're not going to give up their time to be a guide. So yeah, the vast majority of the guides are men. So it'll make me blob. Watched the final this morning and great race, always inspired, amazed by what these women are doing. And the one who came in 4th, last place, there's only 4 in the race because obviously in terms of the lanes, there's the 4 elite athletes and then there are 4 guides, so it takes up all 8 lanes. So I watched her come in 4th, and I always think this, whatever race I'm watching, I never think of it as someone coming last. Because think about it, she's come 4th in the whole world. That's amazing. She's a winner. But anyway, she came in 4th place, quite a ways behind everyone else, but crossed the line, and her guide then asked the other athletes and guides to come over, and they all sort of gathered in a little group. And then her guide got down on one knee and proposed to her. Oh! My eyes want to spring because it's just so gorgeous. So you know what? She may not have won a medal, but she's going home with gold. It was just so cute. Anyway, it set my day up great. I was like, oh, that's so lovely. And I was like, right, I need to get off to the garden. I've got some work to do. I was halfway here and I suddenly thought, oh, I feel a bit peckish. And I don't want to abandon the garden too soon because of hunger. So I know I'll pop into my little corner shop on the way just to get myself a bag of nuts because they'll keep me going. And in this particular corner shop, whenever I go in, he'll say, "Hello, what Vivi did next." He calls me by my channel name. It always amuses me. So he said, "Afternoon, what Vivi did next, how are you?" I was like, yeah, I'm good, how are you? And he's so excited because I don't know how many years he's been saving, but he's got a wife and a couple of kids, and they've been living in rentals for years, and they finally found a house to buy that they can afford. Outside of London, he'll still be at the shop, but they finally found a house they can afford, and they're really happy with it. But what is so exciting is he's dead excited because it's got a garden, and as he was just explaining to me, he can't wait to have a go at growing some of his own veggies. He wants to teach his children how to grow vegetables. He wants them to know where their food is coming from, and then it's going to have all that knock-on of growing your own food, harvesting it, cooking it. He wants to teach all of that to his kids, but he's super excited for himself. And he's saying, right, what do I do at this time of year? So we've had a lovely chat, and as I was leaving, he said, "You do realise you're going to be my garden doctor?" It's like, I can share my experience, but I'm no expert. Anyway, so that was really cute. I'm grinning from ear to ear. And then the side road that I walk down every time I come to my garden, I know the vast majority of people who live on this street, some of them have gardens, some of them I know from previous to me having my garden. But there's one house where I don't know the owners. And in the last few weeks, 3-4 weeks or so, I've noticed in the window, they've obviously got the sofa in the window. So on top of the back of the sofa in the window, a really cute poppy. A really cute shaggy dog of a puppy that reminds me so much of my little Charlotte Bronte. So I've been noticing this little pop. I mean, it turns out it's 7 months old, but I've been noticing it for the last few weeks, and just every time I walk past I go, "Oh, you look like Charlotte Bronte." Anyway, today the window is open, so it's a Victorian home, so it's like big deep sash windows. Sash window is up. The dog had its backside on the top of the back of the sofa and the front of its body through the window with its paws plonked on the windowsill. Ground floor, I hasten to add. And I saw it when I was about 3 houses away, and so I was sort of going, "Oh, you cutie, I can see you properly today." I was chatting away to the dog. "Look at you, aren't you cute? Oh, you remind me of Charlotte Bronte. Oh, I want to scrod you, you're so cute." Da-da-da, going on and on. And the next thing, oh, a human popped up from behind the wall. This dog, it turns out it's called Brian. And Brian's human was in the front garden, tending the front garden, but was basically sat on the front path, snipping and clipping, so I hadn't seen him. So I was like, oh, excuse me talking to your dog. But it was really cute. So I ended up parked there for a few minutes, chatting, talking breeds, because theirs is a lurcher too, and talking about, you know, how fast they are, but how much of a couch potato they are. All the sighthounds, they're such couch potatoes. You know, they love to have a 20-minute race around. Whoa! And then they get home and that's it, they're on the couch for the rest of the day. It was just so nice, just so lovely. And you know, that's the thing about front gardens, isn't it? The lovely thing about having a front garden is you can end up talking to a passerby and forming a little bond. I really hope when I move to my ground floor place, I just hope for a bit of garden. If I've got the front garden, that would be really cute, because I'll make friends with people as they're walking past. Yay! Or people will start to avoid the street because they think, "Don't go past that house, she talks too much." Anyway, look, 3 lovely little things to start my day. A lovely wedding proposal, marriage proposal, whatever you call it, at the Paralympics. My lovely shop owner who's getting his first garden, and meeting gorgeous Brian the Lurcher properly. So, now, let's get on with the what I'm supposed to be doing. So, I had filmed the tour yesterday. Didn't do anything else in the garden because I had other stuff I needed to get done at home. I did a little bit of harvesting and, you know, stuff home, get it frozen, what have you. But then, and it's always really, really useful. I need a glug of water because I'm talking so much already. What's really useful when I'm editing my own videos, I always sit with pencil and paper. And it's particularly great when I do my own tour. So as I'm editing it, as I'm walking around the garden, I'm now watching what I've filmed as opposed to walking around focusing on the screen and trying to show you things, whatever. It gives me a chance to see the garden again. And I can think, oh, that's a little job. Oh, that's a little job. So I'll make a note. And it's usually the little jobs, because the big jobs are so obvious, I don't forget them. You know, big jobs like harvest the onions or plant the brassicas or such and such. So I was editing yesterday, I made a list of some little jobs to do today. So I've got a whole list of them I'm going to crack into, and then it'll probably end up being a separate video. I must get on with the calendula and lavender harvest. I was delighted as I was leaving yesterday that I ran into my friend Bonnie down here, who earlier in the year, I don't know how it came about, anyway, she'd come over and we were just having a sit and a chat outside my shed. I must have had them out ready to sow my calendula. She was asking me about them and why I grow them, and, you know, or we got onto the subject of that I grow them not just for them being pretty, but for their medicinal quality. Happened to mention eczema, and it's really good for eczema. And she said, oh, I should give it a go because one of my friend's sons has really bad eczema. So it was perfect timing. I was there with the seed, gave her a load of the seed. Anyway, yesterday on my way out, she's got a plot near the gate. I hadn't seen her for a while. And she said, oh, Vivi, come over. She's got this lovely bed of calendula in a much better state than mine, I have to say. Not quite so wind and rain smacked. So she was asking me about harvesting, so we had a good chat. I always have a notebook and pen in my bag, so I wrote down the recipes for the balm for her. So she's going to be getting on with her harvest too. And it was that prompt of, yeah, really, really need to get on with it. But that will be a separate entity. Right, where shall we start? I'm looking at my list. Oh, and in looking at it, I think I need my lump hammer. Where's my lump? I might need a hammer for the first job. So, let me find my hammer and then come and join me out in the garden. What a great day already. Oh, I love days like this that are just... It's so simple, isn't it? It's so simple to have joy. Right, shut up, get in the garden, come on. You lot, don't distract me, you're delaying me. Come on, garden. First little job of the day. I'm here next to the Taunton Dean, my perennial kale. I'll tip you down in a moment. This came from a cutting I took last, I think it was about May 2020. I took a number of cuttings because the parent plant was getting a bit old and gnarly. That's fine. Took a load of cuttings. They're all over this site. There's one just over there next door in next door's plot. Anyway, so the cutting was then planted. Oh, it's getting really windy. It's definitely not summer, is it? I left them all to root just in little pots. They were all in one pot. Were they in one pot? Anyway, it doesn't matter. They all rooted, potted them up, potted them on, and eventually this one went out. I can't remember when I put it out, but it's now almost at hip height, getting on for 3 feet tall. It's got a little bamboo stick from where it first went in when it was only sort of 7 or 8 inches tall. But like all brassicas, and I've mentioned this the other day, they really don't like wind rock. But also from the experience of my previous Taunton Dean, which was originally a gift cutting from Jimmy, thank you lovely, it grew huge. It was a monster, and I kept having to sort of tie it back to the fence. So I'm hoping to be a bit more ready this year by using one of these metal sticks. Can you see it's like rebar, but it's one of these, you know, with the sort of like the crook on the top that gets used for, you know, taping areas off. I didn't steal these. I found a number of them when I first took the plot on, and there were gnarly brambles everywhere and raspberries that weren't doing anything except making a horrible mishmash and couch grass. As I cleared that area, I found a load of these, and they're so useful. So yeah, if ever you see this kind of thing being chucked out, you know, if you see it in a skip or whatever, ask permission, please may I have it. Really useful in the garden. So let's get on and get this in. Just going to tip you down so you can see the plant I'm talking about. There it is. Now the thing is, I was looking for my lump hammer, and I forgot, of course, that my lump hammer broke. Oh, the smell of rosemary. I'm brushing up against this beautiful rosemary. Yeah, my lump hammer broke. Gave it a new handle. It's broken again. So the only thing I've got is a rubber mallet, but I'm thinking that the rubber will absorb too much of the energy, so it's not going to bash it in. We'll give it a go. Oh, it's going in a bit. Is it? Oh, that is, I think that's in sturdily enough. What I can always do is ask a friend. Yeah, there's no one about at the moment, but if I see anyone later on, I'll just say, hey, have you got a lump hammer I can borrow? And whack it in a bit more. So for now, I'm just going to tie it loosely, in the absence of having a hammer today. Oh, it's a bit awkward. I say loosely, I've tied it quite securely because we are windy, but what I mean is, if I haven't tied the string to the rebar, so that if I can borrow a hammer to whack the rebar in a bit more, it can just slide past the string. It's not going to take the string with it, and therefore the plant with it too. Good little job done, and it's looking beautifully healthy. Oh, a few white fly, but otherwise, yeah, looking great. It was really nibbled earlier in the year, but it survived those nibblings, and it's looking lovely. Let me show you right into the centre of it. It's a gorgeous plant. Yeah, you can see from the bottom, a couple of leaves have dropped off, but as we go up and up, I mean, look at the colour of its stalk. Beautiful purple, beautiful. And then in there you can see lovely new growth. I will be harvesting from this all winter, and then eventually what will happen is, you can see we've got the new growth in the centre. Eventually I'll get little spurs of new growth sort of in the elbows, as it were, between the leaf and the main stem, where those little growths appear from. That's what you can use to take your cuttings. When I first was given a Taunton Dean a couple of years ago, because I'd never looked after one before, I did some looking up, as you do. It is known as Perennial Kale, but perennial doesn't mean forever and ever and ever. What I saw online, the advice was that after about 3 or 4 years they can become a bit tough and gnarly, so you might want to replace them. So ideally what you will do is, say in year 2, is take your cuttings and bring them on so that they're ready to go out. In year 3 there will be little teeny tiny plants whilst you're still harvesting from your lovely big main plant. And then after the 3rd year of the main plant, you decide, no, it's now too big and gnarly. Take it out, chop it up, compost it. And of course, by then, your cutting from the previous year will be big enough to start harvesting from. Yay! So yeah, perennial, but not forever and ever and ever, amen. Never do anything. Oh, it's a beautiful sight though, isn't it? Gorgeous, gorgeous green. Of course, we're getting into that time of year now, aren't we, where the green changes from, say, the very sort of limey green that we get with our beans and squash through the summer. We're now going to be fading into these slightly more bluey greens of our brassicas and our lovely evergreen herbs. Oh, it smells gorgeous. That reminds me, I think I probably would like to do another rosemary harvest very soon. Right, next job, we need to go down the path. So for my next job, I need, a nice paper bag, which I can handily, I think, yes, hook on the teepee, because it is time, gently, it's time to start harvesting my celery seed. I've waited for it. Let me show you the sprig. So this celery was planted in, it was started in February 2020, planted into the garden around about May 2020. I harvested it and used it and enjoyed it throughout the winter of 2020 and into 2021. Left one plant, it went to flower, little teeny tiny white flowers, and now hopefully you can see the seed has gone brown, it's ripe, it's mature, so it's perfect for harvesting. Because it's such tiny seed, that's why it's going into the bag. The bag will then hang in, I was going to say the airing cupboard, it'll hang in the shed. You could hang it in an airing cupboard at home if you've got one. Do people have airing cupboards still? I remember the airing cupboard at home as a kid. It was a bit of a, squash flower. It was a bit of a catch-all. Everything went in the airing cupboard. Yeah, just hang it in the shed where it's dry. It's relatively warm still. The main thing I'm doing is I just want to dry them out, and then when it comes to actually harvesting the seed from the pots, it's just to shake it, and they'll just drop out. Hence putting them into the paper bag, because they are incredibly fine seeds. So yeah, without the bag, they'd be lost. I suppose you could put them on a dish somewhere nice and warm and dry. I mean, frankly, I don't need this many seeds, but I'll have them anyway, and then if other folk, plot buddies, what have you, would like some, then they can have some. Oh, and the reason for a paper bag rather than a plastic bag, happy days, yeah, is it just allows it to breathe, as it were. There's, good air circulation, rather than using a plastic bag in which, because there is still some moisture in the stems. If they're in a plastic bag, that could sweat, and then the whole lot would go mouldy and rot. Could go mouldy and rot. Is there a little bit more? Oh, that one is being clung onto by one of my unknown squashes. Yay, the year of the unknown squash. Right. Tick, another little job done. I love these days of little jobs. It always feels so satisfying, and it's also, it's not hard work. It's just, you know, in a way it's sort of more tinker time, isn't it? But I can't remember what my next job is, so let's go back to the shed and check the list. Oh, out you come. Hoopla. Now for a more slightly lumpy humpy job. I want to use this big pot to put my second blueberry in, because it really has seemed to suffer for being in the smaller pot, me not being here to water. Get into this big pot. It needs ericaceous compost, a slightly higher acid compost. So I've got a new bag, past remnants from the old bag. I need to empty this, but there's no way I can pick that up and put it into the wheelbarrow, so I'm going to have to spade it out. The other thing is, oh, it's quite compact. This is kind of garden soil and spent compost in here. Now, our garden, I'm getting warm. Our garden soil does, over the years, get a little bit more acidic from growing. That's why, you know, folk will often lime their gardens or add wood ash to bring it slightly back to neutral. I think that's the way around. Have I got it wrong? Anyway, the point is, I don't think I've got quite enough ericaceous to fill this whole pot. Oh, if I can ever get it empty. So I may well leave some of this compost in here. Like I said, if I can get it out. And of course, oh la la, everything I take out of here, just go and dump it on one of the empty beds. This is proving a little bit harder than I thought it would be. I think, do you know what? Let me get on, come back when I've done it, or at least got most of this compost out. Phew, well that's warmed me up. Now, one thing to remember, if you're going to grow something in such a big pot, make sure you put the pot in its final growing position before you fill it with all your compost. You don't want to be lugging these huge pots around. So, getting there with filling it. I had thought about moving this next to the other one, but actually I kind of like them being either end of the deck, bit of symmetry. So my lovely, but looking a bit threadbare already, bush, it obviously really suffered for, you know, lack of water, drying out, what have you. I've already decided, have a little place, see how it's looking. I've already decided to place it this way on because it sort of wants to go that way. Great. Bear in mind where we've got paths, communal areas, access, what have you, you don't want your branches overhanging. It's annoying for everyone who needs to use that path. Plus, if it's overhanging, fruits will get knocked off. So, yeah, that's the position I'd like it in. Now all I have to do is try and get it out, because it's quite heavy, because yesterday, oh, there we go, I did give it a good soaking. Oh la la! Couple of little annual weeds have floated in there, get rid of those. Am I happy with the position? yeah, so now I can backfill and hopefully it'll be really happy here. You know, it's emptying the compost that was in here. Wow, it was bone dry. I mean, utterly bone dry. Can I say utterly one more time? Utterly bone dry. And it's one of the reasons I prefer not to do container gardening as an allotmenter. I think it's very different if you're based with your garden at home, outside your back door. But for me, there's two things. One, buying the compost. You know, I try to garden for pretty much no money. Obviously I have to rent the land, and obviously there are some seeds I do need to buy. Actually, just excuse me a sec while I tip this in here, and then close it easy, and then I can move it around. Whoop, no. Keep the bag. It's super useful for other things. Yeah. The thing is, obviously I try to garden for little to no money, and all these containers, you know, they're costing pounds and pounds and pounds to fill with compost. I don't mind it for something like the blueberries, because they do need that ericaceous compost, that slightly more acid compost. But for anything else, you know, folk quite often ask me why I don't grow potatoes in bags, sacks, containers, whatever. I know why they're asking. They're thinking because it will save me on digging. But I did an experiment, was it last year, year before, with one of these little grow bags. It cost me £10 to fill it with compost. And the spuds it yielded would have cost me about £2.50 in the shops. It's not worth it. So, you know, I'm lucky I've got soil out here. I've got perfectly good soil to grow in. I don't need to be buying compost. So yeah, for me, it's too expensive. But also the big thing, and it's the practical thing, is, as we've seen this summer, there are times I just can't get here for whatever reason. I just can't get to the garden to water. And yeah, you know, if it's a one-off, of course I can text one of my friends, Gary or whoever, to say, you know, would you mind, I mean, don't water the whole garden, but would you mind just putting a few cans of water on my deck container grown plants? I think it's, you know, I would do that if it was just, you know, one or two occasions. But when it turns into a whole summer of me not being here, it's just not fair to ask people to do that for me. So, yeah, generally speaking, I prefer not to grow in containers because they take up more sort of time, maintenance. However, blueberries, an exception. All my lovely little geraniums, an exception. And, thinking about it as well, I've got the little rose cuttings from Paul, which I'm growing on to eventually put at the base posts of our new community pergola. They need some stakes and tying in because they're flopping everywhere, and it reminds me I also would like to do the same with the one outside the shed. So I'm going to finish up here, tidy away, and then let's go and see how things are looking outside the shed. Whew, I'm getting warm. Good, cracking on. I've put the obelisk that was in the big pot, it's now in the grow bag next to it. It's a bit top heavy, so what I've done, I've gone fishing in my little ironmongery box to find a hook, screwed a hook into the fence, and that obelisk, it was given to me, yay. There were a couple of, you know, those kind of like wire, twisty wire fastening things. So I've just fastened it to the hook so it's really, really firm. The couple of little rose cuttings, they've now got sticks, and I'm such a thorny rose, thanks Paul. Just kind of keeping everything going upwards. Outside of the shed, the rose that's in the trough, tied that in again. Do you remember I harvested the lemon verbena? When was that? Probably beginning of July, 2 months ago or so. It's shot back. It's crazy again. So as I was fighting to find the rose, ouch, ouch again, I've disturbed the lemon verbena, and oh, I smell it, it's gorgeous. So harvest the lemon verbena has now been put onto the list as well. I may do that now, but I realise I've been yapping on for ages this afternoon, so I'm going to leave it there for now. I'm going to say cheerio to you all whilst I start to think about the next little jobs. Before I do that, I'm just going to have a sit and nibble on those nuts that I bought on my way here. Yeah, and think about the next job. Oh, and the other thing I have done is I've done a bit of watering. Having said a few days ago, oh, I haven't needed to water, I've watered the celery again, really, really big dousing. I've watered the chard because it was just starting to go over. They have really long roots, but it was just looking a little bit wilty. Done the same with the peppers because they were looking a little wilty. Actually, this is a really good little tip for newer gardeners. If you've had your first garden this year, we're getting to that time of year when we're starting to take plants out, chop them up, put them in the compost. We're just kind of entering that phase, aren't we? As you take your plants out, take time to have a look at their roots. Their roots can tell us so much. Ostensibly, look at their roots to see how long their roots go down. And it will give you an idea for, you know, in future seasons for watering needs. So, for example, our little seedlings, when they first go in, teeny tiny roots. Onions have fairly shallow roots. Things like the chard can end up with roots that look like really long, fantastic carrots. Likewise, fennel can develop a really long root. So with some of those plants, when you get to know their roots, the following year you can think to yourself, especially if you do the trowel in your soil test, if you put the trowel in the soil and you see, oh, 6 inches down, there's some really good moisture down there, you can think, okay, don't need to water those plants that have got the really long roots, save myself a bit of work, but also let's not pamper them too much. Likewise, if the moisture is 6 inches down, having observed the roots of your plants in the previous year, you can think to yourself, I know that's got a really shallow root system, so it may need a bit of help with some water. Yay! So a bit of watering, splash, 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 happy days. My belly's rumbling. Barbaricmas of the belly, I need to eat. So for now, I'm going to say cheerio, gorgeous people. Happy whatever it is you're up to in your garden. Of course, all of our friends now in the southern hemisphere, yay, it's spring, it's time to be excited for your garden again, whilst we all go, taking plants out. There's, whatever time of year it is, there's always something to enjoy in the garden. So go on, hop it, get down to your garden and go and enjoy something today. Bye for now, everyone.